sorry,
There we
I
go.
forgot
We are
about all the
live.
buttons. I forgot about all the buttons, and then I need to add the streamer configuration I need to do. Whoops. Oh my
Oh, you're
goodness.
live now.
Am I? Yay. Hi,
Yeah.
everyone. Beautiful. Okay, let's go then. Where would you like to start, George?
Well, we were discussing what led us to this discussion, by the way. We were chatting the other day, and what was the actual thing that came about where we were like, oh my goodness. Now, obviously, Babylon working. Today, well, I guess we should start with, listen, we're talking about the Whore of Babylon. But I had done a podcast 2 years ago on Jack Parsons and JPL and the magic with a K that was involved in all of this stuff. And then Kayla had mentioned the whole Babylon working, which again was a series of these magical ceremonies or rituals, which, correct me if I'm wrong, they were based on Aleister Crowley type stuff, right?
100% correct. The religion of Thelema.
Religion of Thelema. And, you know, we looked at the dates, and these happened between January and March 1946. And you had mentioned, hey, when was Marina Abramovich born? Because you are a big, you've been in the Pizzagate thing for probably, what, 6 or 7 years?
Since the start of it, since those WikiLeaks emails dropped, I was neck deep in them.
And obviously, Marina Abramovich has been a big player in all of these things. And we looked at her birthday. She was born November 30th, 1946. So the whole 9-month thing would fall directly into that line of thinking.
Surprisingly to me, honestly, because everyone runs on the fact that he brought up because later on in his writings, I think it was 1948, he wrote something else along the lines of like referencing the what would you call it? The intaking of that spirit. He referred to it as Hilarion, which is what led everyone to think Hillary Clinton because of that reference, and they would like to think that this man is psychic so that it proved them right, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's spot on, because that Kim in the chat room, that's who she thought it was. She had mentioned Hillary Clinton to be the Whore of Babylon.
And that's what everyone assumed, especially after the Pizzagate incident. But she was hiding right under the surface there, Abramovich, and she has been for a long time. She's so intimately related with some of the most powerful people in the world. It's hard to deny what she does is power. Do you know what I mean? That it has some element of power. And when you hear her speak, she always talks about the summoning of energies. She always talks about it. She talks about it in the form of performance art, where she'll say, like, to invoke this energy from the audience, I do this. And she doesn't just do like, oh, I'm going to stand on like a fairy's head and dance. I'm going to hold up, like, so one of my favorite ones is where she sat in the corpses of over 2,000 cows and cleaned their bones in a white dress. It took her days, and she sat there and did it in dedication to the people that lost their lives in, I think it was Belgrave War or something. But just like the blood magic involved in that, like just the time spent that she was cleaning those bones, like it's not even the fact that it's the time and the energy and the focus that she spent for so many days and so many hours. It was insane to read. I remember that blowing my mind more than anything.
So at what point do you think she realized who she was and the power she had? And, Kim actually said she also brings up the glass dome. That's an interesting aspect as well. But here's the thing. She's 75 years old. She was born November 30th, 1946. She's 75. And if you would walk past her in the mall, you had no idea how old she was. You would be like, no, she's about 50.
Yep. And well, even then, unless you got close to her, you wouldn't even really see those wrinkles either, would you? No. You wouldn't even see those things. I wouldn't anyway. and like watching videos of her, just trying to rehash like some of the things that I haven't and seeing some things that I haven't seen of her. It's weird. It's like she goes in and out of these age gaps. Well, like, so you can watch one video of her from 10 years ago and she looks like she's 75. But then you watch another video of her that's like 6 years after that point and she looks like she's 23. So I don't know. I find it really. I find that extreme change in her visible age, either a piece of like the makeup and stuff to do with her art, like because she is a performance artist, right? So does that mean she would wear makeup at certain points? Like I've always tried to discern that, but I've always found the way she looks very strange because it changes so rapidly.
That's a good point. She does look different all the time. Now, how do you? Have we talked before, you and I, about Barbara Bush? And basically, many people say that she was the daughter of Aleister Crowley because her mother was in Paris exactly the same time Aleister Crowley was, 9 months before her birth. And if you put those two pictures together, they certainly look alike. And do you see any correlation between Barbara Bush and that story and with Marina Abramovich and her coming around?
Well, so I see a lot of similarities in a lot of things, right? So like that picture that I sent you last night, isn't it interesting how much she looks like Ghislaine Maxwell? Don't you find
That's
that
right.
interesting?
And then also Lady Gaga, right?
Right, 100%. And everyone is kind of suspicious of that anyway, like the whole Lady Gaga thing, just because of how intimately they do things together. She doesn't choose people randomly. She doesn't just like focus on people randomly. One thing, like, so another person that I've really found interesting to look into is Whöre. I can't remember his real name off the top of my head, but he was another performance artist that was a huge part of her life, like to the point where like, oh, it was mind-blowing. But a lot of their earlier art pieces were done together. So like when you see the pictures of their hair tied together, that's Whöre. The guy on the other side of that is Whöre. And like there's another installation that they do where Whöre is holding on to like a bow and arrow. He's holding on to the arrow and he's balancing himself on one end of the bow, and the arrow is pointed at Marina's heart, and Marina is balanced on the other side of the bow. So it's like if he slipped off that bow, it would have killed her instantly. Like that kind of tension energy. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of constantly, like one of their last pieces. So the last piece that they did together before they stopped talking for 22 years was they walked the Great Wall of China, and they referred to it as like walking the dragon. And like how hang on, I'll just pull up the article because it's a really interesting read. It was a really interesting read. Anyway, what were you going to say in regards to what you said before I trail off?
No, that's fine. I was just looking at the correlation between Bush and Aleister Crowley, and obviously the whole Jack Parsons and Babylon working was all about the ideas that were based on Aleister Crowley. So I guess my question to you would be, the story goes that her parents are Vojan Abramovich and Danica Rosich, which, I mean, they're just normal people. There's no real backstory. As many elitists throughout the world have, family history going back, many, many decades or even centuries. So do you think this is someone who that's her real origin story, or is there something more to it?
I don't know. If it was her real origin story, everyone knew what she was when she was born. Do you know what I mean? So because these people are highly organized. They don't do anything by accident. Everything is timed perfectly. So if you match up the time, so when Parsons did the ritual, it was in early March of 1946. That's only 8.5 months to when Marina Abramovich was born. But November 30th is also another big date for esoteric reasons. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a reason that date was chosen. Now, they purposefully induce women every single day to give birth on whenever they plan to. And these people will specifically choose a time and date for these women or men to be born so that the stars are aligned at exactly the right moment, so that the timing is exactly right. And they produce those things. That's a ritual to them. So regardless if she is who we suspect she is, there is no way that everyone wasn't involved in you, because there was a huge part of bringing, like, there's rituals that have to be done when they're young to be able to assist this stuff to happen. Even in the writings it says that there's these really deep rituals and stuff that have to be performed at certain times in that person's life to be able to invoke whatever they're invoking. It's like what you talk about with numbers and symbology. Numbers mean so much that they will literally induce a woman's birth, like the birth of that child, at a certain time and place on purpose.
Interesting.
And yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I'm going somewhere with this. What do you think the correlation or relation from Marina Abramovich to Ghislaine Maxwell? Because they, like you said, they certainly sure do look alike.
So
because if you go mother-daughter,
grounds.
you're talking 15 to, she would have been like 15 or 16 years old, which again is completely possible.
Well, I don't know if it's mother-daughter. I don't know if it's mother-daughter. I don't know if it's a cousin even. I don't know. I have no idea. But I just find it really confronting that these women look so similar. And that they have similar ties, right? It's not like I just pulled it out of left wing or right wing. It's like these two women have direct ties. They're tied to each other through the accusations that they have against their names, right? Ghislaine, we'll just call her Maxwell because I hate her first name. But Maxwell, she was so entrenched with Jeffrey Epstein and that whole charade, right? I think she was listen, I don't know who she is or what she is, but I know that she was directly related back to Israel and all of these other things that just, you can't pass it by. The Kabbalah and stuff like that, that's all relative to Thelema as well. Like, the more you look into Thelema, and I really hesitate doing that. I don't like going to these websites and reading their stuff because, you know what? Even I, as someone who has, I consider to have discernment, I get sucked in sometimes. I look at some of the stuff that they write and I'm like, oh, I get that. I totally understand that. And then I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. What am I looking at here? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to draw you in without realizing. It's like I don't know. It's hard to discern things when you don't want to read them because you're scared of being entrapped by them, isn't it?
Yeah. And then it also goes to what stuff do you trust that you're reading, or are these things purposely put in place to lead us down a false trail, right?
Again, yeah, 100%. And are they really a false trail, or do we just not have the knowledge to see the trail? That's the real question, because a lot of these dead ends, if you come back to them, say 3 or 4 years later, after gaining a bunch of knowledge, you find new answers to those dead ends that were once dead ends. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing.
Yeah. We talk often about, with these folks by the way, Robert Maxwell, he was, I don't remember how many children he had. I think he had 9 or 10, but Ghislaine, I know I hate that name too. It's so weird. That was his, he named his yacht after her. So obviously she was the chosen one in that family, right?
Or she just decided to comply with what he wanted from her. Like, she decided, she lived up to what he expected from her. So she was like the daddy's girl. She was the one that would do anything for anyone as long as her dad said to do it.
Yeah. And listen, I don't want to stray too far from the Marina Abramovich, right? That's kind of our focus tonight. But I think it's important to know, because you have to understand, and you know more than anybody, because you've been down this rabbit hole probably more than anybody that I've met before, is that the Maxwell family has very, 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 very deep ties to the state of Israel.
Extremely. You can't deny it.
Yeah.
And
so
usually you can deny that stuff. Usually they make it so that it is deniable. Do you know what I mean? This is so in your face that it's unusual.
Right. So let's look. He was killed in like November of 91. If you believe the story, it was because of some debt. This guy was a Mossad asset. I don't think that was the story whatsoever. That's like the lamest cover for a murderer in the history of conspiracy theories. He obviously